I'm Seamless, and today I want to show you a trick you can do in SERUM to squarify a table. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, the act of squarifying will take a wavetable like this guy and turn it into a wavetable like this guy. Pretty neat. Process is pretty simple. Essentially, you go to the edit window of whatever wavetable you're in. Go down to the formula window here. You go to multis if you're going to do all of the tables, or singles if you're going to do some like one of the tables. Go to multis, hit Squarify. Squarify alt will just do a different set of harmonics. I'll explain what that means in a second. So once you do it, it processes all the tables, and now you have a squarified version of the wavetable, which is the same with this guy. Now, what does that even mean? Well, if I were to go back to regular Monster 4, you look at the EQ that I have open here. And we'll both look at the last, last table of this guy. We see, and we also hear a profile that's consistent with what a sort of a saw-based waveform sounds like. What I mean by saw-based is that it has all the harmonics active. And if you look at the low end there, you can see very clearly the fundamental tone and the first octave, then the fifth, then the third, and whatever, and then like the next octave, and then you have all the the harmonics active. And of course, which harmonics are present and which harmonics aren't present are responsible for the morphing of the table and the hearing the sound that we hear. But they are still, all of those harmonics are active. And if you look at the square-based version, we see it's thinner looking than the saw-based. If you weren't looking at the EQ for that, I suggest you rewind it and look at the EQ for that. Now, the reason why this happens, we can actually look at this directly in other plugins. If you look at Harmor, for example, Harmor starts you off with a saw wave when you begin in the initialized patch. And then if I were to fade to the square wave, you can see very clearly that it's accomplishing the square wave conversion by removing every other harmonic. So that's what I meant by the alt version of the Squarify, because you get Squarify and Squarify alt. Squarify regularly does what the crossfade on the square does in Harmor. It gets rid of every even harmonic. But then the alt version will get rid of every odd harmonic, which also includes the first harmonic, which can be kind of weird, but you can do that. And it's interesting. That quality, that kind of smoother, like almost like glassier sounding quality is born of the square concept. That where if you're not like in the regular version, a lot's going on in the morph in between different tables, but it's all going on in all of the stall-based harmonics, otherwise known as alt harmonics. And if I went to the square side, it's the exact same activity, only it's limited to just the square-based harmonics. None of the even harmonics are present for this. Indeed. So that's pretty much the trick that I wanted to show you. It's pretty cool. It's a good way to make pretty unique sounding things. But what's interesting though is that the second you mess with it, it adds additional harmonics to the sound. Like if I used the bend plus and minus to screw around with it. The second you deviate at all from the non-warped state, it adds harmonics back and you get the original sort of saw feel. And that's the difference between the square and the saw feels. Like you can hear. It's much more smoother sounding, and then this is much sharper sounding. And there's reasons for that, but that's not super important anymore. Anyway, I just wanted to show you that cool trick you can do with SERUM, where you can squarify anything. The reason why it looks more dense in here is because I squarified the morphed version where I have all 256 frames active, although it's only based on like 30 or 40. I forget how many I have in here. Probably like 30. And if I didn't have the morph tables, which are the intermediary tables that it generated to morph between one table and the next, then it would have only squarified those tables, but instead it squarified the morph tables as well. So right now in oscillator B with the square version, there are no morph tables. There are just 256 tables total. That's why it looks all smooth and cool looking. Yeah. Anyway, if you have any questions about any of this, let me know. And as usual, have a nice day.